So, bonjour, good afternoon, Your Royal Highness.
Good afternoon, dear
Yeah.
Martin.
Thank you. First of all, let me ask you, how are you in these days of the pandemic?
Well, I had a little accident, but it doesn't matter. I'm well, as I'm always well in Greece, where the weather is lovely.
Yeah.
Do you have good weather in Budapest?
Yes. And let me tell you, for all those who are listening and watching us, that you are living in Athens, the capital of Greece. Yes. How long have you been living there? Just a fun fact.
Listen, in and out, I came here to live in my country when I was 20. That means 63 years ago. So, but I've been in and out. But now we live constantly here, and I'm very happy here.
For such a long time, you lived in Paris and in New York.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, many Greeks do that. They live abroad, but then when ages come, they all come back to their land because we all feel happier in our land. That's it.
See.
Very easy.
Such a nice message. So your novel called La Nuit Blanche de Saint-Pétersbourg were translated into Hungarian, and it was published by Alexandra book publisher.
Okay, great. I'm very flattered to be published in Hungarian. Really.
I'm so honored.
It's a great compliment for me, and I'm delighted, as I love your country. Okay, go on.
Thank you very much. And I would like to ask you to share some secrets, some information about that book, some that are less known to Hungarian readers. So first of all, I would like to ask about your life, because it's so exciting to us that you were born to a Greek-Danish royal prince with an amazing number of royal ancestors and relatives in your family. Let me tell you that your father was a Greek-Danish royal prince and your mother was a French princess.
It's very easy. I'll tell you for my father was Greek. My mother was French. My grandfather was Danish. My grandmother was Russian. The other grandmother was half Spanish, and all belonging to the ruling families of these countries. Okay.
I see.
Or ex-ruling, like France.
I see. And as you mentioned, you were related to the Romanov dynasty of Russia.
My grandmother.
Yes, Queen Olga of Greece.
Yes.
Yeah. But in your youth, you lived in several countries across Europe, like many royal family members.
If you want my life, I was born in Rome, Italy. Then, because of the Second World War, we moved to Morocco. Then we moved to Spain. Then we moved to Paris. Then I moved to Greece. Then I went back to Paris. Then we went back. We went to New York for 15 years. Then we went back to Paris, and now we are back in Athens. Okay, that's it.
Amazing. And after studying political studies in Paris,
yes.
you moved to Athens, and you lived with your family in the court of King Paul I.
Yes, because at that time Greece was a monarchy, and I took part in the life of a monarchy. Yes, I did.
What was it in the early 60s or in the late 50s?
I came here in 60s. Yes, for 4 years, 5 years, we live in a monarchy here.
I see. And did you already have the urge or the, let's say, enthusiasm to write by that time? Because you served in the army, in the military.
Yes, but that was for a limited time. But you know, the army, I'm sorry if I go into private things. I didn't know my country because I came here when I was 20. And the army allowed me to know not only my country, but the Greeks, because in the army, you are in contact with Greeks from every part of Greece and every social strata. So thanks to these 4 years in the army, I really learned Greeks, and I think I know Greeks rather well, thanks to that experience.
I see. And when did you start to write? Because your first novel or your first book was published in the 70s.
Yes, it didn't work at all, but okay.
What was your debut?
My first book was a stupid novel which I didn't like, and I hope there's no other copy in existence. And then I started writing about history. And
Yeah.
my two first books were against Napoleon, who I don't like, and against Louis XIV of France. And I realized that it's no good to write against. You have to write for someone, not against someone. And then I start writing about people whom I really liked.
I see. Since we have just limited time for our interview, let me ask you about this book, which was published in Hungarian end of last year. So your grandmother, Queen Olga of Greece, didn't tell you about her brother.
No, I'll tell you.
How did you find this story?
I discovered in 2 words. I was working in the archives in Moscow about another book. And I was discussing with the people of the archive, and I said, yes, my grandmother, Queen Olga, had 3 brothers. No, they said 4 brothers. No, 3 brothers. No, 4 brothers. So I said, what's going on? So I went to my cousin Nyikolaj of Russia, who was the best knowledge of imperial stories. And I said,
he was the head of the house.
Exactly. Grand gentleman whom I loved. And I said, Nyikolaj, 4 or 3 brothers? He said, 4. But I didn't tell you about the 4th because it was so scandalous. It was such a shame for the family that I didn't know. I didn't want you to know. So that I was excited. So I said, please let me know more now. And he started telling me the story that one of the brothers of my grandmother, Grand Duke Nyikolaj Konsztantyinovics, had stolen the diamonds on the icons of his mother to give it to his American mistress. And for that, he was exiled forever in Tashkent, in what is Uzbekistan nowadays. Yes. So I thought that was a very exciting story. I had no idea. And then I started doing my research in the Moscow archives, talking to people, reading. And finally, I met his granddaughter who lived in Moscow under an assumed name. And for all that, I discovered that the official version was totally wrong. And he didn't steal the diamonds. It was a false accusation. And I discovered that his life was absolutely fascinating. And then I wrote about it. And I hope you will discover it because it's a life of incredible adventures. Very unusual for an imperial Grand Duke and rather unique. And he became totally simpatico. I liked him very much, this great uncle of mine.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm so happy that you finish your sentence in a way like that, because I was about to ask you that why did you really like the character of the life of your great uncle?
Because he was a free man, he was an adventurer, and he was the kind of life very much which take the best of the worst conditions. He was in terrible conditions, sent in exile, and he took the best. As I said, he was sent to Tashkent, and he developed the country. He developed the agriculture, the industry. He became the benefactor of Tashkent, the whole city. I mean, Tashkent is his creation. Also, he had a rather heavy private life, being 3 gamers. I mean, he was married to 3 women at the same time. So, he was a bit strange, I must say. Very intelligent, a great art collector, and a great lover, and good looking. Okay.
Yeah. Was he famous by his time?
He was because of the scandal, yes. But no one, everyone spoke and low voices. Oh, this scandalous man. This he was scandalous, but how can I tell you? He always said the truth. He was right. Not in the scandals, but his opinions were very intelligent. No, he was a very intelligent man. And my grandmother, Queen Olga, was the only one who dared go, I think, to Tashkent to meet him, to see her brother, because it was forbidden by the emperor. So she went and saw him. And I think my father was with her at that time.
I see. And let me ask you about the research, because in a way it was a secret. It was a hidden story. How did you find out that your grandmother visited?
I tell you, most of the documents have disappeared. All his files on the police record of the imperial police had disappeared. So the archives were very. But I met his granddaughter, I repeat, who was another character. I won't tell you because that would take 2 hours. She was a fabulous character whom I met in Moscow. And she told me a lot of things. And she said, please, please defend the memory of my grandfather. I said, listen, I will try, but I don't know what I will find. And in reality, she was right. And the terrible thing is that after I met her, I said, oh, I want to see you again, and I will come back to Moscow. And she died in an accident a month afterwards. So she just had time to pass me this message of trying to justify her grandfather, and then she went to paradise. Strange story, no?
Yeah, it was early 2000, if I'm not mistaken, or 1999. Yes, because you mentioned that in the book. I see.
She was a formidable character, like her grandfather. No, it's a strange family.
Yeah. And did you have the opportunity to visit Tashkent, where he lived and where he died?
Oh, you know, I'm terrible. I had to go, and then my trip was cancelled. Because he built a palace which now is used, I think, by the president of the country for parties. And his collection, because he was very rich, he had a fabulous art collection, which is now in the Museum of Tashkent. And among the works of art, there is a famous marble statue of his naked mistress, the American. And he died looking at the statue of his mistress, who was the love of his life. And during his lifetime, he had covered the marble statue with jewels, with necklaces, with bracelets, and he would look at her every day. She was called Fanny Lear. She was an adventuress, also another story. And if you only knew, everyone around Nyikolaj Konsztantyinovics, my great-uncle, is an adventurer. And everyone I could write 10 volumes about them.
We hope that you will.
If I have time, yes, okay, with pleasure. It's work.
We do hope that.
Imagine that Fanny Lear, the mistress of my great-uncle, who was the cause of the scandal, finally married a member of the illegitimate of the Savoia family, the ruling family of Italy, who's the family of my son-in-law and nephew. I mean, okay. It's
amazing story.
What complications? Okay.
Unbelievable. You mentioned the royal palace of Tashkent. What other buildings are connected to the life of the Grand Duke?
Well,
in Tashkent?
All the buildings of his father near Petersburg. There is the fabulous, beautiful palace of Pavlovsk. In Petersburg itself, there is the Marble Palace. I don't know if he had a dwelling in Petersburg. I know the palace in Tashkent. That I know. I've seen hundreds of pictures of it. That's it.
And I know the St. George.
I must tell you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Martin.
Don't worry.
I discovered 2 months ago, by the sheer chance, that underneath his palace in Tashkent, the archaeologues were digging, and they found a treasure of jewels, silver, icons, which had belonged to him. And I had no idea that it existed. They found it a few years ago, but I discovered it 2 months ago. Another mystery.
Yeah, it's very exciting because I know that the St. George Chapel or Cathedral where he was buried, it was demolished by the Soviet Union.
Although
100 years ago.
you know, he had 2 funerals. He died during the Russian Revolution. And in Tashkent, he had 2 funerals. One by the clergy, by the priest, as a member of the imperial family, and one by the Soviets as a victim of the emperor, because he had been sent to exile. So he was a hero for the locals. You see this poor victim of the emperor. So he had 2 burials, Sovietic and religious.
I see. You just mentioned one of your cousins, and who else do you keep in touch with among the descendants of the Grand Duke?
Indirectly, a lot of my family. Directly of the present Romanov, since the death of my cousin Nikola, who I love not so much, because I don't live there. Okay.
You know, I think in October there was a imperial wedding in St. Petersburg.
Yes.
And you were invited,
yes.
weren't you? And
no, I could not.
No.
I could not go.
Why not, if you do not mind me?
I was busy here because, as you know, you might know, we have a foundation here, my wife and I, and we were busy with the foundation. I couldn't go. I regret it.
Yeah. Let me hear about that foundation. When did you?
My wife and I, we did it 13 years ago, and it is for the protection of abused children. Because while we were living in America, we were involved in a terrible murder of a child who was murdered by her mother and the lover, who were drug addicts. And I knew the child because I was protecting and giving some money for her study. So I was so shocked that I never recovered entirely for that. And when we came here to live totally, we said we have to do something for our country. What? But no, exactly. As we've been involved with a terrible case of child abuse, let's do the child abuse. When we started here 13 years ago, we were talking to our friends and people, lawyers, bankers, whatever. Yes. We were saying we want to do something for abused children. Answer: yes, what a good idea, but there are none in Greece. Since we did it, there is 1 on 5 children who've been abused in Greece. Like in many countries of Europe, it's 1 on 6 normally. In Greece, it was 1 on 5. So we are doing that, and I think it's a beautiful cause. It's terrible because the stories we hear are beyond imagination of horror. But we try. We are perhaps a little piece in the ocean, but okay, we try what we can do.
What a nice mission is it?
I think, I don't know, God help us.
We are about to finish our interview, so I just would like to ask you, what book are you working on now in these days?
I finished a book on 17 adventurers. The title is called My Eccentric Adventurers. Adventurers, but they can be kings, queen, emperors, men, women, all countries, all centuries. People who had fabulous lives, whom I liked very much, and amusing. Okay.
Is that the book that you mentioned, the Hungarian colonel, József Bem?
No. What a memory. No, but there is, my memory, I will tell you, there is, I think, a Hungarian citizen who was called Almási. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, László Almási.
Almási, he was Hungarian, and he had a fabulous life. He's a hero of the English Patient, the book.
Yes.
But in the English Patient, he's portrayed in a different way than Truth. He was an explorer, a fighter, a spy. He had everything. He had a fabulous life. And he was Hungarian. It's a Hungarian name, Almási, I think so.
Yes, he was Count László Almási.
Exactly. No, fabulous
Yes.
life. Well,
it is. So one final question. I would like to mention that we invited you to Budapest for the Budapest International Book Festival. And have you been to the capital before? Have you ever visited Budapest?
I have been briefly, years ago, to Hungary, and I felt terribly frustrated because I wanted to see more and stay more. So this time, besides the book fair, I would like to take the opportunity to visit a bit more because I love, first I read, don't ask me the names, but I read a few of the great novelists, Hungarian. Don't ask me the names.
I won't.
I love the history of Hungary. I love the Hungarians whom I met. Everything fascinates me in this country, and I really would like to know it better.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We wish you good health. Thank you very much. Bye, Your Royal Highness.
Bye.